very delighted to have been selected to run this online session as part of the 2026 OECD Forum on Due Diligence in the Garment and Footwear Sector. And today we are going to talk about ways of putting HRDD into practice in the leather supply chain in Bangladesh specifically. We have a very tight agenda, and first of all, I would like to tell everyone who's joining us that this session is recorded. We will send that out to everyone who has registered after the session. And for those who would like to ask a question, please do so in the Q&A chat function. And we aim to respond to at least a few of them towards the end of the session, contingent on time. And other questions will be answered when we send out the recording and the presentation. So the agenda is very tight, and we also have a very nice panel with us today. So if we go to the slide for the agenda, we will first very briefly just provide a background to the context for the leather sector in Bangladesh. And we will then go on to give a bit of an overview of the projects that we are running there. And especially focus on learnings that we have from the baseline and the research that we've done as part of that project. We will then go on to provide a brief outline of the HRDD guidance that we have outlined, and then we will go on to our panel discussion with our distinguished panelists, who I'm very, very pleased to welcome today. So joining us today, we have Maruna Islam Chowdhury, who's an economist working for UNDP and especially for the Transformative Economic Policy Program. We're also joined by Rihanna Akhtar Ruma, who is an advisor and consultant working for various distinguished initiatives in the leather and textile sector. We also have Ashraf Uddin, who is the Executive Director for the Bangladesh Labour Foundation. We also are joined by Sam Mahboobuddin, who is the Executive Committee members of the Business Association BFLFEA, but also Managing Director of Kid Leather Industry, Superior Leather Industry, and Velox agencies. And then, least but not last, we have Shahinur Radman, who is the Mondial FNV country consultant. We were also supposed to be joined by Mr. Abdul Kalam Azad, but unfortunately, he is not able to join us today due to sickness. And he is the president of the Bangladesh Tannery Workers Union. So without further ado, maybe we will just go into the presentation. Just very quickly to introduce myself as well. I am the consultant lead for our partnership team at the Ethical Trading Initiative. And the Ethical Trading Initiative is a leading alliance of trade unions, NGOs, and companies. And we are working together to advance human rights in global supply chains. So with that tripartite way of working, we are, and if we go to the next slide, Ipek, we convene and collaborate with key stakeholders to address impacts for workers, including responding to crisis and share expertise and guidance. We also support individual companies to develop and implement effective human rights due diligence. And we also work to influence the policy and regulatory environment for responsible business. So we do that in different focus areas, as you can see there outlined. Next slide, please, Ipek. So very briefly, to just set the stage for today's conversation, a brief context overview of Bangladesh. And I would firstly like to mention that the figures provided here are for the leather sector as a whole and not just the tanneries. So as we know, Bangladesh is extremely famous for its RMG sector, but also the leather is actually the second largest export sector of the country, and it's therefore a government priority. In the last fiscal year, the export figure was around 1.14 billion, so around 2.36% of the total, with around 850,000 employed people in the country. It has a very strong raw material base, and the export is actually under-realized due to compliance gaps, which is something that we will talk about today. The sector has also done a major relocation. So before, in 2017, it was in a different area, the Hazaribagh area, and it moved to Shavar Tannery Industrial Estate, the main part of the tannery sector. There are other places as well. So it went from 220 tanneries in Hazaribagh to around 142 operating in Shavar, and that figure is from June 2025. One of the reasons for this relocation was to reduce pollution and boost the competitiveness. There is a shared CETP, for example, and also it was upgraded the infrastructure available to the tanneries in Shavar. Initially, there were no individual ETPs allowed, but a few tanneries now are starting to pilot their own ETPs to basically increase productivity. But there are still some policy issues around this. So if we can go to the next slide. So there are many opportunities. First of all, I would like to mention with the sector. As we've said, it's the second largest one in the country, and it also has a huge raw material base and competent and competitive staff working in the sector. However, there are also some persistent challenges. So the CTP is unfortunately ineffective due to design flaws. That was from the construction in the very beginning. And there is then also ongoing contamination of nearby river and canals that different initiatives are working towards preventing. One of them is also our initiative. It has difficulty accessing the high value markets, the global high value markets, where certification from the Leather Working Group is required. And that is because of some of these environmental standard challenges, meaning that many of these tanneries are still not LWG certified, and that is a big problem. There is continued political uncertainty, but also this raises opportunities. I'm sure some of the panelists will reflect on the fact that this week is extremely important for Bangladesh as they are moving into an election on Thursday. So I know that there is a lot of opportunities and possibilities with this as well, but it has also then meant that policy, for example, has been a bit on a standstill waiting for this election. Also, the sector is facing financial issues. Outside a few private banks, most financial institutions remain under stress, which has also affected the RMG factories. But this has meant that many tanneries, due to also their structural uncertainties, have difficulty access financial credits. And so without meaningful reforms, there is a risk of further marginalization in the global value chain. However, as I would say, there are opportunities. So I think that's one of the reasons we want to focus on that as well in this talk today. Finally, it's a heavily male-dominated sector. Only 8 to 10% of the workers are female in Shavar Estate. And I know that my colleague Nafis will go through that later when we also talk about some findings from our project. So the next slide, please. So with this, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Nafis, who I work very closely with, to provide a bit of an overview of the project that we are running.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. This is Nafiz. I'm working in ETI Bangladesh as a program manager here. So the project that we are working on, the initiative is from 2024, we have been implementing this project. It's called Improving Environmental and Social Conditions in the Shavar Tannery States. It is part of the flagship program, Sustainable Manufacturing and Environmental Pollution, funded by UK International Development and partnership with the UN Trade and Development. So this project we are implementing through 4 consortium partners: ETI Bangladesh, Bangladesh Labour Foundation, and Mondial FNB. So we are working with 40 tanneries in the Savart Tannery State area. There are more than 130 the tanneries operating in that state. And the overall goal of this initiative is to reduce environmental and social impacts through adherence to international regulation, building systems, necessary skill building, and also enhancing efficient production. And the activities that falls under the initiatives are to set up ESMS system, factory-specific action plan, training in OSH, environmental practice, and other technical skills, and also promoting social dialogue through establishing safety committee, anti-harassment committee, and also lobbying and advocacy. So through local stakeholder forums, Leather Development Forum, and also international forums, and also promoting HRDD framework in the sector. So the project is approached with 3 pillars. Deepak, can you move into the next? Thank you. So the project designed with 3 pillars approach. The first one is the ESMS in 40 tanneries. So by co-developing and implementing ESMS, training for workers that includes waste, water, OSH, chemical, and also peer-to-peer support through climate champions, improving efficiency, mitigating environmental and social risk. And the second pillar is to incentivize risk reduction and market readiness through tapping into high value markets, networking with potential buyers, even financial institutes, and mainstreaming the HRDD framework into sectoral stakeholders. The third pillar that is designed through the advocacy and network alignment. So under that, so we are coordinating with international advocacy and infrastructure investment, promoting best practices and success stories of the sector, and also overall improving the HRDD application, the sector-wide risk reduction, and engaging both local and international stakeholders and the entire supply chain. Moving on to the project findings and learning. So under the project, we have conducted a baseline assessment, including knowledge, attitude, and practice, and also an environmental assessment, testing all sort of parameters, utility consumption. And in the last 1.5 years, we have been implementing different intervention. So we have gathered few of the learnings and findings from the project. First of all, regarding the employment practice, so more than half of the workers in the state still relies on verbal agreements, and this rises to about 70% for women. So without written contract, workers lack legal protection and job security. At the same time, men are like twice as likely to have permanent position compared to women. And regarding the tenure disparity, so the average worker has spent around 14 years in the industry, so which shows that long-term dependence on this sector. However, men stay almost twice as long as women. So male workers average over 15 years, while women average just under 9 years. And one very positive finding is that the tannery sector is officially now can be called as child labor free. So in our assessment, we have found that in the last 10 years, no workers entered the industry below the age of 14. So only about 5%, small numbers, joined between the age of 15 to 17. So it shows an improvement since the relocation to Savar. Regarding the occupational health and safety, there is this very limited knowledge on occupational health and safety. So nearly about 40% of workers are unfamiliar with which is like due to critical lack of training. Only training they received are from external organization and development projects similar to ours. Regarding the accidental risk, machinery malfunctions are the leading hazard, about 35%, with men reporting more accidents compared to female. And the mainly reported records are due to heavy equipment. Only about 10% respondent reporting an accident-free environment. Regarding the common health issues, so nearly 74% of the workers suffer from skin issues like rashes, irritation, and due to chemical exposure. So while roughly 20% report like issues with asthma linked to poor air quality, and almost half of the workforce experienced some form of work-related health issues in the past year. And regarding the knowledge on chemical, about 37% of the workers cannot identify which material are hazardous to handle, and this figure surges as 65% among female workers. So the common hazard includes tanning chemical acids, which are often stored at unsafe and sometimes even in water bottles. So regarding the utilization of personal protective equipment, so the utilization of PPEs are very poor. So although 88% of the workers said they have the access to PPE, but only 40% of the respondent that we have talked use it regularly, and 23% never use it at all. And the reason behind not wearing the PPEs are mainly discomfort. The majority of 60% said that, followed by lack of management enforcement and inadequate supply in the factory of the PP. The scenario of the gender sensitivity in the sector are like over 63% of the workers do not understand the gender sensitivity of this term, and 75% are unable to identify like, types of gender-based violence or sexual harassment. Even women participation in training or leadership position is also very poor. Even in the training that we implement regularly, we see very poor participation there as well. Prior to our project intervention during the baseline, we have found out of the 40 factories we're working with, only 2 had established anti-harassment committee, and we are supporting this factory to form this committee, and this number has increased quite a lot compared to baseline. Um, for so we try to understand the perception of workers regarding the environmental pollution and mitigation measures. Uh, so we have found like 63% of the workers identified tanneries as major sources of air, water, and soil pollution. And more than 75% of the workers recognize the importance of wastewater and energy conservation. Uh, Unlike waste and water, 42% of the workers remain unaware of the energy conservation method. We even saw not much progress in the factories regarding the energy conservation. And despite like 80% of the workers knowing what is energy conservation. And we also seen very like a significant portion stated that they don't have any taken any action regarding the resource use, and 36% take no action regarding the reduction of waste and reducing energy use. Next slide, please. So we also talked with the local communities to understand their impact. So when we talked with them, we found that tannery waste remains a huge hurdle for them. Communities say air and water quality have noticeably dropped since this reallocation. A very strong and unpleasant odor often comes from the river where often the waste is dumped. And on the plus side, as they're dependent on the deep water wells, so they haven't been affected yet, according to the community. However, the environmental toll is hitting local lives hard. So, with the water pollution starting to affect livestock, and many farmers are struggling to grow crops in the nearby areas because what they say is the soil itself is becoming contaminated. Next slide, please. So from the 40 factories, we assessed their operation through different assessment and tested different parameters from their waste quality, air quality, utility consumption, operation process, and documentation. So we have found some of the good practices. Like we're seeing a few proactive factories have started aligning their operation with leather working group standards, and most sites are now using leak-free water lines and the precision metering, steam insulation, and three factory we have found the provision of solar panel. So the pre-treatment systems are standard across the board, and one advanced sites have been implemented a chrome recovery plant. And about 40% of our factories we have seen are using natural lights to cut down on energy costs. Next slide, please. However, we also found some critical operational and environmental gaps. The major thing is the data management system in the factories are poor. Although factories had limited records on water and electricity consumption, none of the factories we have assessed have any data on chemical consumption. So this lack of data tracking makes it international compliance and restricted substance monitoring very difficult, nearly impossible. And over 90% of the factories lack environmental, even the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, and even the formal risk assessment protocols. Uh, Fossil fuel dependency, that is still remains high with the minimum solar adaptation. Only we have found it in 3 factories for like a minimum scale, and rest of the 95% of the factories still even use dependent on the fossil fuel and REB connection. And we have also seen waste of water regarding like the practice of open water hoses for cleaning is still there. And as we mentioned, like the lack of restricted substance list is in almost 90% of the factories, and almost all require. So these factories require urgent enforcement of the basic housekeeping. And the similar thing we have seen, like most facilities lack equipment and trained staff, even for air noise monitoring scales. And the liquid waste flow that goes to the CTP, that is still inconsistent. So that put pressure on the overall CTP efficiency, like all the factories dumping inconsistently with the CTP. And the last thing is we have seen in the 95, more than 90% of the factories, so like they urgently address these exposed electric wiring, and some of the stairs we have find are unsafe, poor machine guarding, and also we have seen improper chemical storage. Next slide, please. So with all the gaps that we have found and the areas that we have found to work on. So these are the interventions. There's a response that we have designed and have been working on since the last 1.5 year. So starting off with the capacity building regarding the social and environmental training of the different thematic areas. Few of them are technical, like waste, water, chemical, occupational health and safety. Even these trainings are been delivered to worker representative of different committees and management. Part of the intervention is to strengthen the social dialogue by activating the safety committee and anti-harassment committee. We are working and providing advisory support with this factory so that these are functional. And we are regularly providing the regulatory support and technical guidance and visiting these factories regularly with the technical persons so that their compliances are improved. And also regarding the due diligence, we have developed an HRDD framework and implementing the HRDD tools and providing them trainings on them. And also we are working on mainstreaming the HRDD into their policy. Um, One of the intervention is the strengthening ESMS. So these all the factories have developed the factory specific ESMS action plan. So that was based on the environmental assessment that we have conducted, So there are a list of recommendations they need to put on to be on the like international standards to meet all the standards. So based on those, they have set the KPIs and developed the action plans. Along with the inside the factory, we are also working, having dialogue with financial institutes, trying to build a linkage with market, and also advocating with different institutes for like to overcome these barriers regarding the financial investment. And that goes the same thing goes with the brand alignment, the international requirement for the international market to tap in. And along with all the intervention, what we are doing is consolidating all the learnings that we are capturing through the implementation, and we are trying to disseminate through the sector-wise learning and trying to replicate the best practices that we are gaining from the intervention. Next slide, please. So far, we have seen so many learnings, and from that, we have identified that the data management system is a real gap. So most of the factories are still relying on the manual records, which are inconsistent and almost error-prone. So without reliable data, it is very difficult to measure efficiency or environmental impact. So moving on to like simple standardized digital template is basic, but it is critical. So we are working with the factories closely to develop their data management system so they can analyze how much efficiently they are moving towards the production process. And also, one of the observations that we have found is often we see strong enthusiasm from mid-level management, like to improve systems and practice, because they are the one that they regularly engage with the project and trainings. But however, in many factories, we have seen the lack of enthusiasm often from the senior leadership position. So, but the real changes only happens when the owners are fully on board, because the control in investment decisions that are on them. So the owner's engagement is the key for sustainability upgrades that will sustain. One of the challenges that we face is the workers often cannot leave production lines to attend the trainings outside the factory. Even inside the factory, there is not almost a majority of the factory do not have any setup to deliver any sort of training. So it is difficult for the workers to attend those training. And what we have found is peer-to-peer on-the-floor training works much better. So what we have done is we have developed climate champions inside the factory, so that the peer-based education process that is continued even after the project. So the learning happens without disrupting the production or needing a dedicated space for training. Even we have seen the similar thing for the women participation. So we have seen the underrepresentation of women in the training and leadership position. And some of the factories don't have any female workers at all. So this needs to be like, there are some targeted strategies that is needed to improve the women's inclusion and the leadership pathways. One of the thing is in the many smaller tanneries simply don't have access to capital. So for them, any sort of green or cleaner technology investment feels risky and difficult. Even when they understand the benefit, often they're unable to do those investments. And we have seen this sector-wise. Even few of the factories are working through smaller scale initiative, but it is not replicated in the sector wise. So we need a shared roadmap for the entire sector. A cleaner industry cannot be built by factory to factory alone. So it requires a common roadmap agreed by all the factories, industry association, the workers association, and also government. So everyone is moving in the same direction, including like smaller things like CTB liquid waste channel that needs to be streamlined. So the traceability, the waste management process, all of it should be under a common roadmap. And so there was a time it was optional, but right now international standards are no longer optional. It is for these factories. So the compliance is now a minimum requirement to retain and attract international buyers. So not only to attract buyers, but even for the financial investment that requires compliance to those standards. And we have seen while developing the action plan, the environmental assessment helped these factories. So they knew what to fix first and how. So they had the list of recommendations so they can act as a practical. So these environmental assessment act as a practical catalyst for improvement. And this from the factory management, we have seen the feedback like this is helping them to overcome and making a detailed, rigorous plan. And last but not least, it is integral to mainstream the HRDD into the core system. So that needs to be embedded in the policies, regular standard of operation, and this needs to be like this monitored strongly. And the risk assessment process, like effective grievance mechanism, all of it. It requires the mainstreaming of HRDD in the process. So these are all the learnings and findings that we have gathered through the intervention and our experience in the 1.5 year. So now I'd like to request my colleague Sarah to continue our presentation. Thank you so much. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Nafis. And I think this provides a really good overview of the work that the Bangladesh team, ETI Bangladesh, together with our consortia partners, have done over the last few months. And it's been a very tireless work, working with 40 tanneries with lots of different activities. What we have then been doing on a more global level is that we have also outlined a good practice guide for how to conduct HREDD in the leather sector. What we have noticed is that there has not really been a guidance that can support brands, and especially the brands that are new to the sector, on how to conduct HREDD in a sector and in a supply chain that is quite complicated, as I think you all know, and quite challenging. And especially for brands that are new, it's difficult to know where to actually enter into the process. So one of the gaps that we've been trying to address with this guidance is also to provide the human rights angle. We know that there is a lot of focus in the leather sector on the environmental issues, given the various specifics of the sector. But human rights, I think, has been less focused on. So we really wanted to also include that, obviously being ETI, and that is our bread and butter of what we do. We also saw it as very timely given the emerging regulations. Right now, we know that it's still being debated, the exact dates and times frames for certain of these regulations. But for example, the CSDDD in the EU and also the EUDR have obviously put more requirements in order to do stronger due diligence. And so we thought this guidance was also timely for that. And as I mentioned, many brands lack a clear starting point of where to begin. So this guidance was really to kind of provide that first starting point. And also we are acknowledging that certifications are there and they're good in many ways, but also there is a demand for going beyond certification and also to include risk-based actions into the assessments when you go into the leather sector. So the next slide, please. So the aim of the guidance is really, as I said, to provide a starting point for brands of all sizes, build brand awareness of salient risk and good practice approaches to due diligence, and to help companies understand the unique risks associated with the leather manufacturer, but also then throughout the whole supply chain, going also to animal slaughter and livestock production. And to also direct brands to additional research to strengthen their due diligence. It's also to encourage brands to take meaningful steps to advance human rights, also obviously with the environmental aspect, but specifically also to the human rights aspect, and so to support them to implement that integrated approach across the leather value chain. And I believe there that my colleague has also included the links to the guidance, so you can then have a look at it. Next slide, please. So just very briefly, the methodology for the guidance is based on consultation with subject matter experts, comprehensive literature review, and we have also assessed public disclosures of 20 leather retailing brands. And also, obviously, it's following the OECD's Responsible Business Conduct, the six-step due diligence framework. So there are some of the key brands in the leather sector that have been consulted throughout. But we have also then consulted with other sector stakeholders, such as the Leather Working Group, Textile Exchange, International Labour Organization, Cottonance, etc. Next slide, please. And just very briefly, again, focusing on Bangladesh, this is just to show that based on the volume of literature, Bangladesh is actually one of the human rights hotspots within the sector. So that also shows kind of the need for our project, but also the other initiatives that are currently going on in the country. Bangladesh is followed then by India, Pakistan, China, and Brazil. And as we can see here, many of the issues that are detected in the various steps of the supply chain are similar. When it comes to livestock industry, there is certain specificities and specific challenges to that. So that's obviously something that's also captured by the EUDR, such as, for example, indigenous rights and land tenure for where the livestock production is taking place. But then when it comes to animal slaughter, we obviously also have the animal rights included in the rights package that needs to be considered. And then when we come to the leather industry, some of the aspects here is what Nafis has already talked about, that we have also found from our baseline: gender inequality, freedom of association, occupational health and safety, whereas there's no large numbers of child labor right now in Bangladesh. We know that this is an issue, something that to be very wary about, and something that's also found in other places in the world. And then obviously OHS and the community health and environmental impacts that need to be considered. So next slide, please. I would, before we kick off the panel conversation, I would very much alert you all to this guidance. The QR code was on the previous slide, and we also have the link in the chat. There is a summary version, and there is the large version that has good and better practices. And so I very much encourage everyone to have a look at this guidance. I'm now going to hand over to my dear colleague Abil Amin, who's the Executive Director for ETI Bangladesh and who I've been working with closely for many years. And Abil, over to you. And I also believe that we have a question in the Q&A section that you might want to look at before we start this panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Abil bin Amin. Good morning to all the colleagues who have joined from Europe, and good afternoon to colleagues from Bangladesh. Before going to the panel discussion, very quickly, I want to respond to one question that has been raised during the presentation. So there are three parts to the question. The first part is that how was worker voice reflected during the design of the program? The approach that we took, worker representatives were consulted during the design of all the training modules and also the training tool that was being developed during the project. How are we engaging the workers? A big part of the project focuses on ensuring worker voice across all the different levels, both inside the factory and also the sector. For example, Nafis has alluded upon the fact that we are supporting the factories to develop climate champions who will be working as peer educators and further spreading the knowledge inside the factory. At the same time, we are supporting 40 tanneries to develop environmental management system committees where both management representative and worker representative will jointly develop factory-specific action plan. So again, worker voice is very crucial to us, and we are promoting that workers are part of all the various committees and uh, action plan that are being developed inside the factories. Just to give you some number, we have through the project till now we have been able to establish 23 harassment committees and 29 safety committees. Again, ensuring that it is not only a management-led committee, but it's a committee where both management and worker representatives are present with equal voice. And the last part is how is it having an impact in the work on the workers' life. We are already seeing that uh, especially on areas like health and safety and women empowerment, there are positive changes. Uh, but we haven't yet conducted the inline assessment of this project. So that will happen in 2-3 months' time. So we will be further be able to share with you the actual changes that are happening in the life of the workers through the project intervention after we have completed the inline assessment. With that, I will move to the panel discussion. Today we have a wonderful set of panelists. And it's unfortunate that Abu Kalam Azad Bhai will not be able to join with us, but we still have 5 very distinguished panelists. And I'm sure they would be able to further reflect on the conditions at the tannery state, and also reflect on the way forward. How can we jointly work together in collaborative manner to overcome some of these challenges? With that, I would first want to go to Mr. Sam Mahbubuddin. Mr. Sam is a successful entrepreneur. He has multiple factories inside the Shabat Tanner Estate. At the same time, he is also an executive committee member of the FLLFEA, which is a very prominent and one of the biggest business association in Bangladesh. Mr. Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you for having me over, and good morning to people who are on the other side of the planet, and good afternoon to people who are on this side of the planet. So yes, I would, if you want to ask me something, that's fine. If not, I can just start from my point of view to address a few of the issues. First of all, I wouldn't say we are big. We're big at heart, but we're trying and we're struggling by from all means. But yet, I always stay optimistic. Despite all the hindrances, we try to thrive and push forward. Well, to address the labor issue, if I may go back, like I'm sure we have all read in we have heard stories and we have read in textbooks and whatnot that when the industrialization first started way back, if I talk about Europe, you can only imagine there was nothing, no word called labor laws, no hindrances, no compliances and whatnot. So it was like driving in an autobahn at that part of the autobahn where there are no speed limits. So you could do whatever. And then at one point, things started to change. We were started to become more aware of what's going on, and then started to take care of that the planet we live in, the world we live in. We had to think about it for the next generation and so on and so forth. Then we started taking care of the labor and forces and whatnot. But Bangladesh, the concept is like we still are an LDC, although we are going to graduate come November. And once we graduate, it'll be a different scenario at that point. But until now, since we're an LDC, you have to understand few things. See, if I may talk about our trade, the leather sector, we used to be in a place different than where we are right now. So where we were in this is what I've heard from my father, that in the 1950s, the MOU with the government was that we would be in this area and the CETP would be built in such and such place. But lo and behold, you know how things are, like politically in developing countries, a lot of things goes on. And there was like a phantom red tape. And then what happened was, due to some reason beyond our control, we just saw that the land that was sanctioned for the CETP got taken over by some people, and there was a huge or big hospital built in that place. And then all the agencies and everyone started to put a like zoom in on to us, talking about that we are creating pollution, all that. Of course, leather is a sector, like in the leather sector there will be pollution of some kind, and there are always like byproducts to everything in life. But for example, what the government at that point do, they located a place where we could shift, and they tried to do it, adopt it in a few years, and we were promised that we would have the opportunity to. Everyone has a bank loan, you need that to run your business, but we would be able to settle all the hindrances with the CTP, and it'll be a beautiful place promised as per from the government. And it was like the land was nicely done. At the beginning, we had some issues, but finally, when we were not ready to move, because a lot of the a lot of I think in 2017, when we were technically forced to move in overnight, at that time I think the economy was not that great. It's like, every 10 years there's economic down cycle. So at that time the sales and everything was not that great, and there were a lot of issues that wasn't cleared by the government. So we were basically given four directions from the higher court. So you have to abide by those four directions, and only who does, and then they can move to the new area. So we wanted to go, and most of us, we tried to match those four uh, sectors. Now you may ask, why am I saying all this? What has that got to do with the labor? Well, the labor is part of the whole integral process, and the labor has to go along with us. Without the labor, we cannot do, and they can't do without us. So we didn't have enough time to educate, how this advocacy and all that, like we need to educate them for their safety and for the requirement of compliance and all that. But we didn't have time. We were trying to sustain ourselves, like survive, opposed to like doing all the things that are needed to be done to be up to the mark for brands and all that. So we were thinking that we have to put funds to shift, like shifting a house is one thing, shifting a factory from one location to the other is a different story. So anyways, lo and behold, we did shift, we did go, so did the labor. There were some noises, but the government had shut us down with a 72 hours notice, because there were like a couple of deadlines we couldn't match, like we meaning all the tanneries 150 plus. So finally, when we moved 17, 18, it took almost 2 years for us to gather ourselves together, do the structuring and all that. And by the time we came into place, we just realized the CTP wasn't at its functional state. So by the time we realized that, we already had something called COVID-19. So COVID-19, the existence of the world became a question, and not to mention, I even lost my own father, the owner and the previous managing director of my company. So we lost him in COVID. So that time, everything became back foot. By the time we made it to 2021, still the CTP wasn't there. We lost a lot of buyers. And remember, I was talking about the land that we were promised to be which is still ours. We could sell and pay off all the loans. Some part of the government put an embargo on it, that this is a red zone. You can't sell, you can't do anything. So that loan got blocked. So the loans got blocked. We are out of finances, and then now we have to teach ourselves how to be modernized and how to move forward. And then we lost the buyers, no compliance. So that was like still we are at a total uphill battle. Now, having said that, but at the meantime, there are very many NGOs who are trying to help us, help help us to help the laborers to be educated, what to wear, how to do, and what are their rights, and what are our limitations, what are their limitations, and all that. So I still thank them for that. But in the meantime, how I see this, that we're doing a lot. Like I've recently or lately, I've been attending a lot of seminars. I get invited, and I'm blessed that I do, and learn so much from it. And I try to speak for ourselves, but we are still in the catch-22 situation where we don't still have the fund to do anything about the CETP. Without the CETP, we won't be moving any forward, because LWG we can't have. Again, CETP comes into play. One or two tanneries, they arrange some funds, they got permission to do their own ETPs. But again, if you do the ETP, not everyone has the land mass or enough space to get ETPs installed in their own place, or to make an ETP and to work. But again, the water from the ETP, where would it go? Again, go to the same place, like has to go to the CETP. So unless we have that fund, or if someone, even if the 2 or 3 NGOs of the World Bank or the Asian Development Bank or the government, if they don't finance and keep their the finance, and I'm saying for the government, if they don't keep up their promise and restructure or do anything about the CTP, we'll still be having a lot of issues, and this labor, and we won't, as much as we need to do, and we have to do, and we have to love to do it, but the labor issues and the modernization will still be a problem for it. So this is how I see it.
Thank you so much, Sambhai, for your wonderful explanation of how the struggle started. I have another question for you, but I will come back to you to that question. I will first want to go to another panelist. Please be with us.
Okay.
If I can go to Mehruna Appa. Mehruna Appa is an economist. She is currently working with United Nations Development Program with decades of experience in working with government on policy support. So Mehruna Appa, you have heard the challenges. You are already working with the government on different policy areas on how to overcome some of these challenges. Can you share a little bit that from your experience where you see the policy gaps are and how can we overcome those policy gaps?
Thank you, Abul Bhai, and I would like to thank ETI first for giving me this opportunity to speak at this platform on this important topic. Actually, the leather sector, we've been hearing for so many years, these challenges the sector is facing, the shifting of the tanneries and then CTP, all these issues. But I would say that with the LDC graduation coming up, and now the dependency of only one sector, the RMG, it is very, very concerning for Bangladesh. But however, the different, we see the government is taking various steps. More than that, we see like ETI, the Labor Welfare, the Foundation, and all other development partners, all are working on this issue. But still, the gap lies somewhere where these issues, the long-term issues, are not being solved. But the currently leather sector has about 850,000 workers. And of course, a lot of, not like RMG, but a lot of female workers. What we see that the challenge lies in a lack of coordination, because this shifting that has taken place, and then the CTP issue, and now again there are different. We are hearing that different decisions will be taken soon regarding the CTP and the tanneries. But we see the lack of coordination here. Even when we speak to the entrepreneurs, other entrepreneurs, like women entrepreneurs working in this sector, who are more linked to producing final goods, leather goods, they are still facing problem in locating their factories. One issue is they're not getting access to land. Even there are SMEs, and there is supposed to be a special system for allocating land to the SMEs, but they're not getting access to land. And then some factories are still in Hazaribagh, but that zone, though the itinerary has been shifted, it is still under red category by the Ministry of Environment. So those that are producing some final finished goods, they cannot get access to finance. They have been instructed to move away from that place. So these all issues remain, and we see the main thing is that the lack of coordination is the major thing that we see. Second is the awareness among, I would say, policymakers, and also I don't know to what extent the entrepreneurs are aware of this whole issue, the environmental compliance and these things. Making it more, we are seeing that dialogues are taking place, more consultations and that. But how much message is going to the policymakers? When the dialogues and these consultations are being done, are the policymakers brought into those discussions? And what, developing a roadmap. If, like Mafiz Bhai has said, right, the findings that a roadmap has to be developed. But before that, there has to be concrete discussion assessment map on the different phases of the supply chain. What are the risks? Now, how to make this sector sustain for this, as we know that this is the second largest export sector for Bangladesh, and when the country graduates from LDC status, different preferential trade will be eroded. So depending on only one sector, that will be a really concerning issue for Bangladesh. So this sector has to be supported through policy issues, through coordinated framework, roadmap, through identifying the risk, identifying the policies where the issues need to be addressed, aligning the regulatory framework to the international standards. That is very much necessary. Developing some, I thank ETI and the SMAP project for developing the due diligence guidelines. This has to be carried on, and if you continue with this, this can be a very good guideline for the sector. And if capacity development is also very much needed for these tanneries, especially we have those big tanneries that already have got a very good management system and compliance, but there is also lack of coordination among the different agents, factory owners and tanneries. If the big ones, large industrial, the entrepreneurs come up and support the smaller ones, they through a certain mechanism, through giving them, helping them developing their technical capacity, and developing a certain coordinated framework. Through this coordinated way, I think that can be also addressed. Some of these issues can be addressed. So this is one coordination we see that within the government, among the entrepreneurs, the large entrepreneurs need to come up, and the buyers also. The European Union, we know that they are bringing up new regulatory framework, but to how much are the suppliers aware of this? The same thing, the large entrepreneurs, they will be aware of that, but the smaller ones, there are small SMEs, women entrepreneurs who do not know what those regulations are, what are the requirements of the international buyers. There is also another coordination gap. The buyers can help these small entrepreneurs through the large entrepreneurs, and then through coordinated way, I think that this issue needs to be resolved, and the sector's sustenance needs to be ensured. Thank you
so much, Ma'am. I will come back to you with a follow-up question, but for now, I would love to go to Rehana Rumapa. So, Rumapa, you have been working directly with a lot of the tanneries, supporting them, guiding them both on how to improve the social and environmental standards inside the factory. So, from your experience, can you please share that what are the challenges that the entrepreneurs are facing when trying to implement these social and environmental standards, and what would your suggestion be how they can overcome these challenges? Appa, you're muted.
Thank you, Abil Bhai, to give me the opportunity. Actually, this is a tragedy to work so deeply with the terrorist sector so long. So I can feel the hurdles, I can feel the pain, and I can feel the joy also. Actually, if I say truly and honestly that uh, uh, from the year 2018, after 17 to 18, and now 2026, there are no so big difference between the 2018 to 2016. But first of all, regarding, I am not going to the environment and the human rights or the social compliance at first. At first, I want to say the labor law, actually. Always we are saying that the labor law is the minimum standard. When we have started after the relocation from Hazaribagh to Savar, the labor law implementation has started. And after that, there are so many development partner work. And after that, some of the tannery by the development partners, they have advanced them If it's around 15 to 20 tenants, they are complying with the standard of social and some of the environmental due to the Department of environmental certification. But the number is very few. That's why first I talk about there is not so many difference, because if you think about the holistic target of the export, it's about in the year 2026 we have targeted for 5 billion, and that 2030 it's about 10 billion. But this among 5 years we are just moving less than 1 billion, sometimes 1 billion. So focus on this number of the export, we can say the number of tannery are lag behind to maintaining the social and environmental compliance, following the social and environment compliance. So in this arena, who we are working in this tannery sector, which development partner like ETA also working, I think this is the high time to implement the social and environmental part, which is HRDD. And in that case, what is our main challenges? First of all, the traceability is one of the main issue, because it's also would be the buyer requirement of the EU. That's why traceability is a main issue, because most of the raw hide and skin which are we collected, we couldn't recognize the slaughterhouses and the source of the raw hide and skin. This is one of the point, and it will comply the also the social, also the environmental compliance issues. Another thing is everyone is talking about the CTP, but it's important because CTP is now also poorly managed, and that's why actually some of the management people, they talk about the BOD, COD, and TDS, they are functioning well. But if we talk about the LWG certification parameter, this all the part will have to meet all the parameter of the like BOD, COD, other component. So in that case, CTP is a very big issue to resolve. And another is waste management issue, which is also comply for environmental compliance. So some of the factors like waste management, solid waste management, it's a very hope for us that we are collecting some of the waste, and there are one big factory of byproduct has been established. But regarding the liquid waste, now is unresolved. So liquid waste is a very dangerous for the soil, and it's also polluted the environment, and that's why it also must be addresses the how to control the waste management, and this is a major issue. And waste and water, so water is also a big issue for our environment compliance issue. And I also want to say for tannery, the chemical management. Chemical management is poorly managed in that most of the tanneries, all except the LW, some of the LWG certified, and where we are working, some of the factory who comply with the M4 BSA, this kind of certification. So these are very few. So this way, chemical management is a vital issue, which is also related to the OSH issue, because occupational health and safety is related to the chemical management. So chemical is not stored in a good way. MSD is not maintained. So these also impact the environment as well as the social issues of the worker of the tanneries. So if we talk about the decent workplace, it's also involved. So from my experience, I can say we have started, and there are some progress in some of the factories, but it's as it is so few, we can say we have worked to more of the factories, want to work more of the factories. And I want to say that the others, the decent work implementation is also important. So I think we are working, but let's see. that, but HRDD, if we align with the policy, which is Mehrun Appa and Nafiz also talk about that, but we are talking about HRDD, but as long as we are not complying and align HRDD with our national policy, it's not possible to implement all of this in our tannery sector, as well as the supply chain, the leather goods and leather footwear and other sector like textile also. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Romappa. I will come back to you with a follow-up question, but before that, I would want to request Ashraf Bhai. Ashrafuddin is the Executive Director of Bangladesh Labour Foundation. BLF has been organization has been actively working in the tannery state for almost a decade now. They and also playing a very active role in lobby advocacy, both the sectoral and national level. So Ashraf Bhai, from you, what I want to hear a little bit is on, we have heard the gaps in the policy. We have heard about the work that is going on at individual factories. But at the same time, that work is not being able to scale up. So how do we take it look at it as a sector overall, and how do we look at it from a systemic change point of view? That what are the barriers that needs to be overcome before this learning, before these good practices that some of the factories are doing can be scaled up to all the tanneries in Bangladesh?
Thank you, Abil Bhai. Thanks everyone for having me here. I think when we are talking about the unawareness, I think it's not about unawareness. Actually, it's like how you are acting in the factory level, in the practices. From our point of view, what we have seen over the decades, like, as Nafiz also mentioned that most of the workers are actually working on verbal agreement. So what we have seen that is a lack of actually SOPs, standard operating procedures, in majority of the tanneries, and with most of the supervisory roles are actually running through the not under any responsibilities of job roles manners, and the middle level managements actually are not capable of maintaining the the systematic approaches, because the tannery, how the tannery has been built, most of the tanneries are actually they are actually running through legacy systems. As Shams Bhai also mentioned that he has his father also owned the tanneries, now he is running the tannery as well. So most of the tanneries are actually running through that way. So there is a huge gap of the working procedure, written working procedure, and actually standard operating manners. Another part of thing is that I think the freedom of associations and worker voice are missing, that the industry relations in between the workers organizations and management. This is also very important part for a sectoral developments. Because the workers are actually in tanneries are quite depressed to me. And they are suffering for insecurity because of their there is no contract at all. And another types of things is that there is no proper grievance handling mechanisms. And as you already told that during our project, we have actually formed 23 anti-harassment committee as a 29 safety committee. This process has been started, but it was completely missing earlier. So this and also, as Rumapa also mentioned, the chemical safety, the factory level in-house housekeepings is also still not up to the mark. For the LWG certification, CTP is one part, but another part is that housekeepings inside the factories, workplace environment, and social compliance environment. So this is something actually missing from my point of view, that as a holistic approach, what we can actually say that the procedural way the tannery should run is still missing in tanneries, in perspective of management point of view and also the workers point of view. So there is a lack of understanding of operating a modernized systems of tannery we need to go through all these different sorts of procedural approach. Otherwise, it is very difficult for us to keep ourselves with the, the global standards, and also we cannot compete with the global organizations. Over to you, Abil Bhai.
Thank you so much, Ashraf Bhai. And now I would like to go to Shainur Bhai. Shainur Bhai is currently working and representing Mondial F&B, an international trade union based on Netherlands. Thank you so much, Shainur Bhai, for joining us as well. So, Shainur Bhai, can you please reflect a little bit, because we have heard a little bit from the other panelists on the importance of human rights and environmental due diligence. So, as an international trade union, you are working very closely with both international and national trade unions, also with international brands as well. So, how do you see what role international trade unions and brands can play to support the Bangladeshi tanneries to overcome these challenges?
Thank you so much, Abil Bhai, and also ETI for being me here, and it's also a pleasure for Mondial F&B to share some of our perspective for this. Really, I will keep this discussion very short and concretely, though it is really the discussion point for the long term. In the coming days, the HRDD and also all legal frameworks becoming more important, and becomes really a discussion point over the globe. And though it is started, really, I should say, long term before like when we started this UNGP and others, that definitely all of us should really follow. Anyway, I'm going for directly to this question that this all CSDD or HRDD or OECD guideline, what is coming. So always we're thinking about the branch. So our worry is that whether it's gonna to be another compliance tools or audit tools or something like that. So that's really sometimes make us worrying. So, but if we look at how really through these tools we can make reliable the brands. So I can share some points how these tools and techniques can be used for the improvement of the sectors. That all from this all discussion, we found that tannery is really complex sectors, and it is not only in Bangladesh. If we look other countries like Pakistan, India, or any other countries, everywhere we have similar issues. The thing is that like our experience shows that HRDD can deliver the real improvement, but only when it implemented as the right-based and power balance approach. So that is the key where really Mondial F&B we think that the discussion should start. The first and foremost point that the trade unions or the worker representative should recognize as a rights holder and an implemented partner, not merely stakeholder to be consulted. So when the brands really take them as a rights holder and also take them as a part of their implementing partner of the HRDD, only then really we can get this real flavor or real outcome from the HRDD. And our experience shows that can deliver the improvement, but only if it moves beyond the audit and compliance thing. Instead, become worker-centered, binding, and embedded centrally in their brand policy and decision-making process. So in practice, how it looks like that if the brands really integrated the worker representative or trade unions in every steps of due diligence process, like risk identification, human rights impact assessment, design of corrective action plan, and also monitoring and follow-up of the remediation. If the brands really do through the third-party audit and the things that, okay, we have done our due diligence, that will not really work. So the trade unions or the worker representative should be an integral part of this due diligence process, and they should be part of this continuous monitoring, because this is the principles of the due diligence and all framework, this continuously improvement, not like end of the year audit or after 3 years audit. Secondly, we also think that if we cannot do this, if we cannot really engage the union here, the HRDD will be just a paperwork, nothing else. So we'll make a framework, we'll make a guideline, something like that, but it will not be implemented. So in that case, really, we think that the brand should really do this in their policy integration and governance and sourcing decision. That means when the brands will really give their work order, they should integrate this HRDD in their contract part, where they should really recognize the trade union as a partners, as a rights holder, and the brand should really ensure that the suppliers also integrated the rights holder as the regular monitoring part. Secondly, we think that the freedom of association and collective bargaining need to be enable rights. Otherwise, really, you cannot really improve the situation. So whatever the workers committee, it may be anti-harassment committee, it may be occupational health and safety committee, it may be trade union, law, factory level representative, they should recognize and they should be part of the real support. The brand should support them, the meaningful social dialogue, not like as a part that, okay, we talk every day, and also the sharing a tea or coffee, but they should be in a meaningful social dialogue. So where they really solve regular day-to-day issue in the factory level, they can solve the dialogue should be solved in the sectoral level or in the national level. So brand can really use these HRDD tools as a part of the meaningful social dialogue. Third, if I look about this brand code of conduct, so this should not be voluntary. It should be really binding commitment, and the brand should be accountable on that. How it can be work? So like whatever they will make in their policy or their code of conduct, that enforceable, and the brand should commit on that, not in a piece of paper or the CSR or something like that. Globally, the brand can also do the global framework agreement, maybe with the global trade unions to do the international improvement for the sectors. And that type of code of conducts really should mention clearly consequence of this violation of the labor rights. So not like the CSR. So they should have that commitment. We have really very good experience like our previous accord that really helps a lot to improve the R&D sector, that this global commitment, global agreement, the legal binding. So that type of binding really it's needed, and it's, I think, essential globally for the global development. If we go a little bit further, so that these things is really also important. This brand should really include this HRDD in their purchasing practice. You cannot throw this due diligence process to the supplier or other coach. You have to really take this HRDD process or due diligence things in your purchasing practice, that your purchasing practice should include this living oils, including the due diligence cost, your purchasing. You should give really longer term commitment. You should have a stable work order. You should also give enough time, not like very short term order. That really creates lots of problem. You know, the low short term order, and that really creates all of these things to make the working condition
sorry to
okay,
interrupt
sorry.
you. In 1 minute, we
Yeah,
can.
I have 1 minute,
We are
and
almost at the end of
thirdly, we should say that this environmental and human rights must be integrated. It should not be separated. So someone will treat the environmental things separately, someone treated the social things separately, somebody do only the social compliance, somebody do the environmental compliance. It cannot be happen, because environment also risks for the health, and health, if I have bad health, so I will also pollute the environment. So this should be integrated. And finally, I should say that as also somebody said, that the capacity building, the brand should also take responsibility for the capacity building, both for the suppliers and also the worker representative. And only all of these things, so workers, so in a nutshell, workers should be in the center. The approach should be right-based and also power balance. So I think only then all of these tools and techniques, HRDD or OECD, will be work. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights. We are almost at the end. I had a few series of questions planned, but I will not ask those questions. But what I will want to do is go to all the panelists, and for in 1 minute, I just want to hear some final reflections from them. So I would like to start with Sambhai. Sambhai, in 1 minute, if any final reflections or thoughts, or if anything that you see, that what are the 2 or 3 priority things that can be done to support the industry grow and prosper?
Okay. First of all, I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I had to put my headphones on. First of all, we have to make the gap smaller between entrepreneurs and bureaucrats. I'm talking about my country over here. You have to give applause to the entrepreneurs for us being brave to come out and do something for the community, of course, with the help of everybody. Secondly, you have to remember the labor force we have are not mostly skilled. They're like on-job training kind of thing. So it's like learn as you go. So that keeping in mind, and also thirdly, the standards have to be a little relaxed. Like, if you have stringent or strict standards from Europe or any other continent, say North America, if I go, say US, or if they have like tougher rules, then it's very difficult for us to fight against all odds. Thirdly, we already have competitions with other countries, let alone like look-alike leather products. I hate to use the word artificial leather. Either it is or it's not. It's leather or not. So if we call it like, something made out of synthetic or any other similar material, and they look like leather, they aren't leather, but we are competing against them. The price of a leather product is not as, it's very difficult to compete with something that is a look-alike, and those are cheap to make. Like once, I won't take much time. Once I was asked this question by like one of the, someone from the Western world that, the chemicals that you use, they can cause so many ailments, like especially like cancer from, I said, you're correct, depending on where the chemicals are made. None are made in Bangladesh. We all buy it from either from Europe or North America or South America or from China. So if you're asking me the question, what answer should I give you? So I'm saying, let's not point fingers at each other. We got to work hand in hand. We need all the expertise. We need all the support. And again, anyone is welcome who wants to help us rebuild or restructure or even remake a new CETP, because either they help to educate the government or push the government to finance it for us, or like a foreign hand or any NGOs getting together, 2 or 3, or even the World Bank or ADB, like Asian Development Bank, because we can do many seminars and many shows like this that will really create awareness. But unless the finance is glued together or someone's taking charge of it, we, the entrepreneurs, are really, really struggling here. And I don't know how long would the tannery owners be able to sustain all this hardship, and a lot of like the next generations are not getting at all motivated. A lot of people are shifting out of this trade. So it is not a great thing. How would anyone like to lose a job? Anyone from the panel? No. Like, I don't want to lose my job. Like, it's my bread earning, like, way of making, ways, means, and for my family. So this trade has, like, someone mentioned in the panel that it has been there for generations. This is like the 3rd generation for me. So I don't want to be the one who just, blew the candle off. So, there are so many opportunities. This is the 2nd biggest sector right after RMG. And remember, RMG did not just happen like that. They had to go through a lot, especially if someone, people we already remember 10 years ago, if not a little bit more, that there was a very major incident with a place called Rana Plaza in Bangladesh. We just opened eyes for everybody. So a tragedy had to open eyes, and then this really restructured, put everything in order, put their finances, put all the thinking heads, all the people together, and then due diligence and everything came into effect. But leather sector never, God forbid, had any of the major incidents, and so far we did better than the garments from that point of view. Yes, we are polluting the river a little bit, only 6% if you do check the stats, because most of the river that is next to us at the moment is getting polluted by the textile industry and the washing plants, not us. We just come into light because leather has a lot of water play in the manufacturing process. So we're always under the microscope or the limelight, but we are not the only key player. Listen, like, remember, like, I'm part of this society. I'm part of the ecology myself. Like, so why would I pollute and drink the water or have the fish from the same river? I would not. Like, I like to live a very nice life, and I like my workers to be happy, motivated, and think that every day is a Friday, not a Monday when they come to work. And I would love them to do their part and my part. To do, everyone has to play their role. So we are part of the puzzle and part of the pie. So the government and the buyers, everyone has a role to play to make us succeed in what we're doing. And I love my laborers, and I'm talking my tannery, they love me too. But how much can we hold the love? If there is no money, there is no honey. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your insights and your thoughts. We are officially at the end of this session. It's unfortunate that we couldn't go back to the other panelists for a second round of question or have the Q&A session. But if anyone have any questions for the panelists, please use the Q&A box. We will respond to those questions in writing. I would like to thank all the panelists for joining us today and giving their valuable and important thoughts. And I would also love to thank you all the participants to be with us today. And with that, I will hand over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, everyone. I want to thank every panelist for joining us, for sharing your insights to today's important meeting. I think one of the few words that came out was the need for collaboration, the need to very much bring HRDD to the local context in Bangladesh and to keep working together as we move forward. We're obviously now also looking at the elections outcomes in the country this week. It will be very interesting. I think it will serve great opportunities for us to then collaborate and work as we move forward. I hope that people will also enjoy the other online sessions that is taking place as part of the important OECD sector focus this week. And again, thank you all for joining us, for taking your time. This will be then sent out to all of you as well, so that you have the slides and can go through them more in detail. And yes, just have a very lovely week, all of you, and thank you for joining us.